Hey guys, what's up? This is Dr. Quaz, and as you can see, my camera is far over there, and that's because I'm using an 85mm lens that was made in the 1970s. It's the Takumar 1.8 85mm. Oh, it's absolutely beautiful. I'm just kind of obsessed with it because I've never really felt like I've been able to express myself more through the camera than with the 85mm lens. It's just, the more you get into photography and filming, the more you'll start to gravitate towards a certain perspective. And that's what filming's all about, is showing a different perspective. That's also what FPV is about, is seeing a different perspective. And of course, for me, filming a different perspective also. And that's really important to understand because throughout humanity's history, seeing a different perspective was the job of the artist. It was to go through that chaos of the unknown and to pull out a piece of order and in a way that was beautiful and something that would inspire people. And then it would change their perspective on the world. But seeing a different perspective is quite difficult in this day and age, or at least presenting a different perspective to something that people haven't really seen before. FPV is really the last revolution when it came to showing the world a different perspective through the eyes of a lens. But that's not really the point of this video. The point of this video was my original statement. Right before me is a lens that was made in the 1970s. It's older than me. And here it is, bringing me joy in this digital age. It doesn't have autofocusing. It doesn't have any computing elements at all. It is just raw design, engineering, and precision. It's a work of art. It's beautiful to know that there's companies out there that will make something that will bring joy to the world for multiple generations. It is a human story. It is a story about the soul of humanity and how even with rudimentary tools, we, with love and precision and dedication, craft something and bring it into the world that will make the world a better place than it was yesterday. I want more and more of that. And I'm not just a hipster who doesn't like digital things. I love technology. The thought of AI and what it can do for us is exciting. But most importantly, what really brought these vintage lenses out of obscurity was the modern day mirrorless camera. Now, I'm not gonna bore you with the difference between a DSLR and a mirrorless camera, but I don't hate technology. I think it's pretty amazing, especially when technology and vintage analog precision meet together. It's just a beautiful place to be, and it's why I'm absolutely obsessed with this camera and this lens. I would do nothing but film all day long if I had a choice. Now, this video's title is The DJI Inspire 3 is Lying to You. So why the heck am I talking about cameras and Takumar and 1970s and AI and technology and all this stuff? Well, it's because it's all interconnected. You see, the DJI Inspire 3 is a filmmaker's tool, and the filmmaking world, as I've come to know it, is incredibly broken, and there's a lot of misunderstanding for new filmmakers that may end up cost them their career or even worse, their dreams. We've known it for some time that everything goes to the people who have everything, and that doesn't just mean like riches and money, but it also means like clout, attention, and YouTube fame, and who gets the job. And I don't really know if it's just about YouTube's algorithm and where we've gone in social media. I'm sure that plays a part. I mean, you look back at 2017 when Peter McKinnon was making these mind-bogglingly beautiful cinematic videos, and nowadays it's just a bunch of, well, this, vlogging in front of the camera. Because low effort is the only thing we have left. Not because we're lazy or we don't want to do something high level, but because you're not rewarded to do things at a high level. I can get much more views just by talking in front of the camera than I can from going out there and filming for 3 days, paying for a hotel, feeding my kids, feeding my wife, filming, taking all the expensive equipment out there, busting my butt 12 hours in the day, waking up before sunset, filming this, filming that, 3 days later, then spending 2 or 3 weeks in a sound design and video editing, release the video and it gets, 100 and something views. Was it because it wasn't good enough? Well, I mean, I won awards for it. I won first place in Shenzhen's national award, and yet that video has one of my lowest views out of my entire channel. Why is that? Definitely, when it comes to me improving myself, I'm all for that. But that's the problem. We're telling young filmmakers that the reason why you're not getting more views or your videos are not popular is because you just got to do better. You just got to do better. You just got to find your audience. You just yada, yada, yada. But what if it's not true, though? But what if the truth is that this content is no longer promoted, or even worse, it's no longer appreciated? Now that's devastating, and I don't think any true artist is ever going to give up and just accept that. We're going to push back. We're going to force you to be inspired by something we do, and it may take us our whole life, and maybe we won't even be appreciated till after we die. And that's just the name of the game for the artist. We don't do this because we want money. We do this because we have to. Now, we also do want money because we have to feed ourselves and feed our families. That's not the prime motivation. But dreams are not bulletproof, and for sure, if you want to be a filmmaker, if you want to be an artist of any type, you're going to have incredible tenacity into holding on to your dream, even when it seems like everything has failed and all hope is lost. At the same time, we shouldn't just accept that young creatives are being chewed up and spit out and blame it on them for not being tenacious enough. We need to find a healthy balance between requiring tenacious, hardworking dedication and doing our best to give these young creatives the most likely chance they have to succeed. It's a multifaceted thing. It's emotional, social, economic. There's so many ways in which a creative person can fail, and there's very few ways that a creative person can succeed. This is the problem. It's not that we've got to swing one way left or right. It's that we need to find a better balance. And that leads me to the DJI Inspire 3. The notion that you need a hyper-expensive, full-frame, flying FPV camera up in the sky, I just don't see that as viable anymore unless you're already a rich, successful filmmaker. Because at the end of the day, if you're someone like me who's right at the cusp of their career and you're trying to push into the next level, or if you're someone who's just starting out, you should not be thinking about what gear you can get that's going to compete with Hollywood. You can't compete with an 80 to 100 person team. You never will be able to, even though everyone expects you to. They're going to pay you like they're a mom and pop restaurant, and yet they're going to expect you to have Christopher Nolan level cinematography. And that's really the problem with the Inspire. We are already being choked to death out here as smaller creators, and buying a drone in 2023 is not a financially successful model for a business. Maybe back in 2017 it was. Every single job I've been on has declined me to even bring my Air 2S because they're not interested in that perspective. Every person and their grandma has a DJI camera drone, and they don't need to hire an artist who's going to charge more than just a worker who's just going to operate the drone and get the footage for them. And yes, there's definitely a difference in the quality of someone who understands story and cinematography and editing behind a drone versus someone who doesn't. However, at the end of the day, it's always usually just good enough for them. They want to pay the least amount of money possible and get as good as they can get. And that's what I've slowly been coming to understand, which is why I hung up my Cinelifter and I sold the camera that was going to go on top of it. There simply just isn't a need for it. I don't really like DJI, and this definitely is a video that's going to be throwing a rock at them a bit, but the DJI Air 03 is pretty dang good. It's definitely good enough for any sort of social media post that you would get, which is going to be like 99.9% of the jobs that smaller filmmakers are going to be getting, unless you're doing some sort of film stuff, and then you're in a different tier. But like, if you're like me, some sort of guy who goes around trying to get jobs with hotels or marketing firms or whatever, the DJI Air 03 will be good enough for them. In fact, multiple times on my videos, people are like, whoa, is that the GoPro 10? I got people coming to my studio the other day that are part of some big drone corporation, and they're like, wow, that GoPro 10 looks really good. I'm like, that's the Air 03. And they're like, what, really? Well, I mean, shoot, it does 10-bit color. All you got to do is have a little bit of color grading skills, and you can make it look pretty good. I mean, DaVinci Resolve Studio Edition, get that noise reduction filter on, and hey, man, you got yourself some good low light for a fraction of the cost. I don't think DJI is trying to do anything bad with the Inspire 3. I genuinely tend to respect their photography drones. However, I don't think the Inspire 3 is for anyone who doesn't already know for a fact they need it, and they're probably just buying it on a studio's budget. If you're an individual creator out there, here's my suggestion to you. If you need a camera drone, well, you should already have a revenue stream, because finding a job when you just have a camera drone is almost impossible in this day and age. I would suggest getting into FPV, getting an Aero 3 unit, putting it on a 3.5-inch 6S whoop that you can take inside, but you can also maybe do some building dives and stuff, and just hitting the books, studying the fundamentals of filmmaking, sound design, color design, editing, storyboarding. Go out there and watch a masterclass on scripting and story writing, and to better understand every aspect of essentially what it is that we do behind the camera. It's not marketing for a product, it is telling a story. And that is the ace up our sleeves. It's almost impossible to compete with the film workers, the people who are good at the snappy product photography that you see on Instagram, and they're usually operating with the top level equipment and processes that are extremely efficient, so they can make the same video that you would try to make in a fraction of the time. But what they don't have is our ability to tell a good story. And that is an incredibly complicated and lifelong pursuit, but it's one that's filled with passion, purpose, and fulfillment. And so it's something that I gladly engage in. The last thing I'm going to say is this. I didn't want to jump the gun and tell anyone about this until I had it ready, but to be honest, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to give it away for free to everyone, even if you're not on my Patreon. There's just no way for me to do this in a way that would benefit the community if I'm also trying to lock people behind a paywall. I definitely appreciate everyone joining the Patreon because I really need it, but this is something bigger than me that will let you take a flight controller, a DJI Air 03, ELRS, GPS, and a couple other little things in there, put it in a shell, and then use that shell to lock on to an ESC motor combo of pretty much any drone you can think of. Now, I've gotten it to work for as low as 2.5 inch, but I suggest 3 inch, but it can also go up as high as a X8 Cinelifter 6S. Most of these flight controllers range from 2S to 6S capabilities, but the ESC is the one that really differs from build to build. Well, leave the ESC and the motors on the frame, but then make a interlocking kind of connecting piece that you can move to different drones, which means that you only have to buy one flight controller and one DJI Aero 3 if you want to fly a mountain, or you want to fly indoors in a car window, or if you want to fly in a park. It doesn't matter. You can have multiple drones without having the need to buy a bunch of different flight controllers and a bunch of different air units, a bunch of different ELRS or Crossfires, or a bunch of different GPSs. You just need one. This is kind of the ultimate middle finger to companies like iFlight. No longer is iFlight going to be able to slap together a bunch of crap and stick an O3 air unit in it and have some great marketing, and then everyone's going to buy it up and they're going to regret, because flying the Defender 25 is going to give you footage that makes you feel like Walt Jr. from Breaking Bad was behind the sticks. And I think it's such a cool notion to think that we're both going to be saving the community money, but we're also going to be making people think more seriously about the quality of their parts. Now, it's possible that I'm overthinking this, and this new design is going to be like the Mecha Roach or the Sea Dragon and fall under the radar and everyone's going to forget about it. But I don't think so, because there's nothing quite like saving people money while it's also giving them a better product. That's not heard of often, but of course, just like the Takamar 50mm 1.4, it's possible, and it can indeed change the way we look at our gear.